Hello, welcome to my capstone presentation, my senior year at Dixie State University. My name is Cory Hansen. Here I'm implemented a open source, all free IT infrastructure for a small business in town. Didn't have much of one to begin with. They asked if there was a centralized and automated process for backing up files, and I was happy to do that, as well as implementing a couple of other things for them they're happy about. Did this with Proxmox, which is an open source Debian based operating system. Here we see the GUI for entering into configuration interface for the the operating system. Right now it's being used as all of these are basically it's a VMware that's free, that runs VMs as well as containers. They're called OpenVZ containers, which essentially I believe are identical to what Gels is doing on FreeBSD. That's actually how I've implemented most of the infrastructure here, is through this type of implementation. So basically, from here, there wasn't much to it other than bridging all of the containers to get an IP address from the Firewall VM that I set up. It's a DHCP server and Firewall, and then setting up my RAID, the file backup system and saving system for the Windows workstation computers into the file server container. So what we have here is I'm in the root operating system command line here, and this operating system sees my RAID. However, I was having issues running and trying to get my file server Linux, Ubuntu Linux, to see it. Obviously, any type of file, any type of additional storage outside of what's virtually been allotted to it. So as you can see here, I'm just going to show the fstab for mounting the RAID, and that's where it is on the base operating system. And through the container, that's where Samba is seeing the storage medium on the base operating system. And much like we've been accustomed to on the CIT network, there's a kind of a VM interface that goes directly into a virtualized command line for that VN. So as you can see here, the Samba server is outlined in my work specification, is looking at my storage directory inside the SRV folder off the root of this file server. And here we have the directories for each user's computer, and everything gets saved to there. So that's it for showing basically what I did for Proxmox, and then I'll show you the additional functionality I've done with the containers through this operating system. Okay, so ideally, I mean, if you're working with a larger business, having a more sophisticated switch and running ACLs before routing on the inner network would be ideal, and the best way to go, as I'm learning in my network infrastructure class right now. However, in a small network and something with a server like this implemented, there was an option to run a operating system alongside all of these containers. I chose Untangled, also known as NG Firewall, which is essentially it's running as a VM image, so it's unlike the containers. It runs alongside and acts as a basic firewall, web filtering operating system on the network. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that as I boot into the administration page here. More importantly, I just needed something as a firewall for blocking ports, request from the outside internet. Go ahead and they requested that we had just something implemented that we could block websites, certain websites. So we went ahead and had an example of a Facebook restriction implemented, and then have the workstation PCs will be set up and locked down so they can't install or they wouldn't be able to download executable programs. So installing anything would be moot there. So just going to show you a couple of instances of this running, and attempt to do a Facebook hop, and we're getting a restriction there. And then go ahead and try to find an executable file or something to download and see if that's working as well. And since this is using this is open source, it's Debian based, just like Proxmox is, so it's actually using Squid in the background for setting up these ACLs. And I'm going to go ahead and try to download executable here, and we're getting a block on that as well. So this is going to be fine for their use, and will be the best way of getting through and making sure their network is secure. Alright, so with that brief introduction to essentially the foundation of where I started with Proxmox and how the server is on the network, I wanted to go ahead and implement something similar to roaming profile for Windows. It wasn't necessary in this case because there's only 3 users using their specific computers. So I wanted to set up something hand in hand with Samba that does something similar. So here on the RAID 1 storage, centralized storage, we have the users, usernames, and on their computers, and this is a test system that I'd set up for this. That basically essentially uses Windows folder redirection instead of all of the unique folders that are made for each user on Windows. Instead of that being a location on the hard drive itself on the local host, it's going to be pointing to a similar location on the file server. So this keeps it everything redundant and backed up without any help or realization to the user. So that's automated, and from here, essentially just showing brief functionality. I'm going to go ahead and make a test document here on the desktop. Let's just make just a bitmap test here, and then just go ahead and look at where the location is on the file server, and here we go. Proper author of the file, and like I said, automatically backed up. So this is just shows you how I went ahead and implemented that. Next thing I wanted to show that I've implemented and deployed on the network is a Microsoft SharePoint alternative, open source and free to use software content management platform called Alfresco. That's something I discovered a few semesters back, and this can be used for having employees and groups of employees cache together and archive all these notes, collaborative materials, templates for work documents, edit those, and upload them all onto the server for use. Just make sure everything's synchronized. Everybody's got the most recent one. So I'm going to show you a little bit how that works, and then we'll go on from there. Go ahead and we'll just look at their example work site. It's basically what it's doing. So site members, this shows you kind of different types of people you can set up doing different properties towards the site, manager, collaborator, another manager here. There's some, you can add anything to this. There's a wiki aspect you can add to, just for informational sake, just make kind of like a, you want to set up sites for a specific project, so you put people onto it, and then they collaborate together. Their links, to-do lists, upload files too as well. So what we do is, what I think is a pretty useful aspect to this service is being able to upload all the user files, work files into one area. And as you can see, once you get further in, you see that it uses services very similar to OpenOffice. It doesn't rely on it. You can use Word documents, simple text documents. Keep everything unified in one place for everybody to use without having to share them across computers with some rudimentary means like thumb drives, or having to email copies of things might get modified, and not everyone's looking at the same version of one document. So basically, from here, this kind of shows you exactly what the aspects of how this could be used well, from small businesses to as an enterprise solution, keeping everything on a local network rather than relying on a third party like Google Documents to upload and update things across the internet, which you may not want to do as far as sharing business documents with. So that's about it with this one. Configuring it, I'll go through and get the post config files in the written spec, and from there I'll move on to next aspect of my project. So as in the work spec, I've implemented something that I consider his use in digital forensics a field, not necessarily towards the IT or employees of the business, but in case of any type of investigation from local authorities. Basically, if your business happens to get caught in some type of illicit uploading, downloading, user on the network's been doing that, and since all files are stored centrally, you can. I figured it'd be nice to employ some type of script that would probably help authorities along, but also add a layer of protection for the business, so they wouldn't have to take the whole system IT infrastructure for data analysis when all they really would need is if there was any reason why they were wrong, and they go and take a server and find nothing, then they've cost the business X amount of dollars from stopping everything in its tracks. Whereas something like this, simple enough, can be implemented that would allow them to still analyze, and while not uprooting the whole server system, taking it to a lab and all of that. So this is basically a script I made that runs every 3 a.m. in the morning. Cron job that outputs MD5 SHA-1 sums for every file that's been saved and stored on the user accounts on the workstation PCs. And then I'll go ahead and see what one of those looks like. So we have downloads here, favorites, desktop, everything that's unique to you, all the user profiles I've implemented over there on Windows machines, location, where the files are put on the server, and a hash value goes with it. And this file itself will be used. It could be used in a forensic toolkit program for cross analysis with known files, known file hashes of illicit materials, things that might be illegal, or if there's a specific file that they're looking for, they would get some hits through this. And if a police department sees that you've installed something like this on your file server, there's no reason why they wouldn't be inclined to take advantage of it for analysis. So that's it for this aspect.